And you're live.
And we're live. Hopefully this is kind of an experiment because we have been blocked, which only validates our existence to me. You're not really there until you piss someone off enough for them to block you off of the TikTok or the whatever you're on, the social media platform you're on. So, what did we say? We were talking about different religions besides Catholicism being involved in certain disgusting activities against minors and others. And I think a different word for that tripped an algorithm. I don't really think that it was anything other than that, but I should probably repeat that not all religious people are bad people. It's not the point. The point of the video was that Catholics aren't the only ones involved in disgusting, illegal activities involving minors. And it happens in all religions, and it happens in other phases and sectors of society too. So, is there a time limit on the live?
No, you can just go live.
We're old guys. We don't really know how to use that TikTok stuff. Which is
So here, I can read you some of these. Hi, I left Christianity a long time ago, and I am doing so much better because of it.
Yay. I just read that, right? The Norse pagan? Good for you. You're not living in fear anymore? Is that the one? Yeah.
No, this is someone else.
Oh, sorry. Well, anyway. Yeah. Breaking out of Christianity is difficult for some people. It was easy for me because of my circumstances and the way my brain is formulated. But, some people are crippled psychologically and emotionally for life because of religion, because of fear and guilt and general oppression from religion. And Christianity is, especially American Christianity these days, is a prime suspect in those endeavors. So, in a week or so, we'll be back posting again, and it's encouraging that we're able to do live. It doesn't make sense, right?
It doesn't make sense. But... Yeah. Here's another question: when was religion first introduced for the purpose of control?
Ever since it was introduced. I mean, there's been so many astute comments over the years. Religion exists so that the poor don't rise up and kill the rich. Religion is the opium of the masses. It's a simple thing to control people through their faith system. So as long as there have been governments and leaders, there has been religion being abused to keep people down.
What do you think of Buddhism?
Buddhism is trendy in the United States, and I think that it's one of those kind of a California cool thing to be involved in. You don't really agree with Western religion, and people generally cherry pick what they find best about religions anyway. And Buddhism, as an atheistic religion, tends to attract people. I think in some ways that the Western religions have let them down. And I like what the Dalai Lama, who seems to be a decent guy, he hasn't done enough to address the problems within Tibetan Buddhism, but he said that if science proves something about Buddhism wrong, then Buddhism will adjust. And that's a reasonable faith system, one that doesn't try to deny facts. And if religion is going to stay relevant going into the future, it has to adopt those kinds of policies and ways of doing business, much like the Catholic Church finally accepted evolution. You can't deny what is obvious fact and expect to remain relevant, and that is what is really going to cause the downfall of evangelical Christianity, which of course is dwindling away like the last few drops of pee out of a dried up pizzle. It'll die sooner or later. So it's because it doesn't take care of those things for people.
That was a thank you from WG Trucker 357 who asked that question. I'm not going to be able to pronounce this. Do you know about the Epicurean paradox? Epicurean?
No. Oh, Epicurean?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the one where if evil exists, God either, if God can end evil but is not willing to, then he's malevolent. If he's willing to but not able, he is not all powerful. If he's neither willing nor able, then he's not a god. And if he's willing and able, then why is there evil? It's pretty obvious, a pretty obvious thing, really. The fact that bad things happen to good people is a real problem for religious folk, and brings up the whole free will argument, which is stupid as fuck, because You'll say, well, why if God is good, then why are there murderers in the world, and why does this man get to kill anybody he wants if there's a God? Well, because God gives him free will. Well, what about the free will of the victim? All right, you've right there qualified the free will of the perpetrator as being more important to God than the free will of the victim. So that argument doesn't stand up for shit to me. It's all just justifications for the fact that bad things are going to continue to happen to good people, and there's nothing that your fake God can do about it.
Yeah, we can answer more questions. Have you ever been religious or pondered the existence of God?
Of course, I was raised Protestant like most people in this country, but I was raised. I'm old enough to remember a time when Protestantism wasn't about loony evangelicalism. All right, the mainline Protestants who started this country and the deists who helped them were not biblical literalists. They were post Enlightenment intellectuals who understood that the Bible has to be seen as metaphor. There's nothing about it that can be called literal truth. At its best, the Bible is a metaphor for the way that you should live a life according to people who lived that life from 4,000 to 2,000 years ago. There's really not a whole lot more to it than that. So, what was the original question?
It was about your...
Oh yeah, my upbringing. So I was raised in a liberal congregational church. The founders were largely Episcopalians, Congregationalists, First Baptists from the north, Presbyterians, and Dutch Reform, Calvinists. There's people that were educated but still believed in God because they didn't have the knowledge of today. And I continue to maintain that if any of the founders had had today's scientific knowledge, they would have left the creator language out of the founding documents. They just didn't have any other real reference point. But none of them were evangelical Christians in the sense that people think of that today. Life on the frontier was tough. People didn't have time to proselytize to their neighbors. They were just trying to survive. And the founders understood that religion was important to the people, and so they worked with that. But when I got to the age where I could really deduce things and think for myself, it became obvious that the whole thing is just a sham. It's just a comfort myth. People want to believe that their life goes on. They want to believe that there's a better place because human beings have largely suffered throughout human history, except for very few, a very small percentage of them. We're lucky enough to have a great life all the way from the beginning to the end. But religion sprang from the fact that life is miserable and short and brutish on Earth, and people needed something to cling to. I want to see my dead mother again. I want to see my 4 out of 5 children who died on the frontier, from disease and starvation. I want to see them again when I die. So, all of this is just comfort myths. And when I got out of religion and was able to think on my own, I was lucky enough to not have been indoctrinated into a hardcore faith, because Congregationalists in New England, I'm pretty sure there was an atheist in the back of every damn church I ever went to when I grew up, and people were more than willing to argue about the nature of Jesus, the nature of the Bible, and the fact that maybe none of it was literal. We always assume that some of it was literal because some of those places exist. The cities in the Bible are actually there. So at some point there is a historical overlap, but to take any of it as historical fact is just lunacy. You can't do it. There's no corroboration. All it is a collection of old stories from old people that have been put together in a way that pleased the early church leaders. So it was easy for me to give up Christianity, but that's largely, I think, just because of the way my brain is made up and the education that I got, but also because I wasn't part of one of these cultish churches that seem to dominate American Christianity these days. We see that the mainline Protestants are almost gone, in favor of these huge prairie churches, these giant mega churches across the country that water down the message and just believe. You don't have to really understand any of it. Don't read the Bible. Don't question it. Just believe, and you're going to heaven. And that's comforting to people of subhuman intellect. I don't know how else to say it. If you're not smart enough to see that they're using you in order to get your money, in order to keep you coming in the door, then I can't help you. If it's good for you and you like it, that's your right, and I will die for your right to believe the crap that you believe. And I defy any Christian out there today to tell me that they will die for my right to not believe and my right to make fun of what is patently stupid.
I would remark as a separate thing is I wouldn't say necessarily all atheists are smarter than theists. I don't know if that's exactly what you said, but would you?
No,
agree?
I don't think all atheists are smarter than theists. I think that the studies bear out the fact that atheists in general are more intelligent. The more educated and the more intelligent a person is, the more likely they are to be atheistic. That doesn't mean that all atheists are smarter than all religious people. I know some very, very, very intelligent religious people. I know I make fun of it constantly, but there are good Christians out there. We appreciate them because they actually act like Christians. Yeah.
Our friend Shannon, who's a friend of ours on TikTok, says she loves your shirt. So why don't you show them your shirt?
Oh yeah, the shirt. Hopefully we can get this together enough where I can make these available. I thought of this a long time ago, and it's a reaction to the church signs. I love to make fun of church signs. Church signs, you know what I'm talking about. They'll put like a clever saying, and one of them that always galled me was CH blank blank CH, and then it'll say what's missing. Like a game of Hangman, and some of the letters are missing, and of course UR is missing from CHURCH. So. And they think that's real clever. Like, what's missing? You're missing from church. Get it? Well, it just dawned on me that the middle letters of atheism are he is. If you start with the AT and end with the M, and you say what's missing, well, he is. God is missing from atheism. So some people just don't get it, but then again, some people still believe in God. So hopefully we can get this up on the Facebook page, and people can purchase these shirts at some point, because we love them. And it was the Kenosha Racine Atheists and Freethinkers is our group that we do, and it's a chapter of the Freedom from Religion Foundation based in Madison, Wisconsin. We're in southeast Wisconsin, and I have dedicated myself over the last 10 years to being the face of atheism in the Milwaukee area, because there really isn't any. It's a heavily religious city. I often joke that if you fell out of the sky over Milwaukee, you have about a 30% chance of being impaled on a steeple. If you've ever seen the skyline of Milwaukee, you know what I'm talking about. It's Gothic steeples, it's pointy spikes and crosses flying up into the air everywhere, and it's a very conservative religious town still. So there's a real need here, and hopefully we're filling that need, because the surveys show that the area is really about 50% non-religious. Not necessarily atheists, but people who don't give a shit about going to church and don't really think that that's a huge part of their lives. And the religious folk on the other 50% really wield undue influence over the rest of us by becoming elected, getting themselves on the city council, getting themselves into the county assessor's office, where they can make decisions about the budget and where money goes, and Christian nationalists use all kinds of methods to surreptitiously affect society because they think that they're doing good for you. It's really insulting. It's really insulting. It's Christian entitlement, Christian nationalism insults the rest of us. It insults minority religions, and it insults atheists, and it insults people who just aren't interested in your way of worshiping.
This was asked a while ago from Maddie and Milo. Kind of a general question of what about Judaism? And I tend to find Jewish people some of the most accepting and loving.
Yeah, Judaism, most modern Jews are atheistic, and they cling to Judaism in a cultural way because it's their heritage, and they enjoy, much like, a lapsed Christian might still celebrate Christmas with his family as a time to gather and enjoy your friends and relatives and eat good food and drink good wine and smoke good weed and generally celebrate the end of another year and the beginning of a new one. And that's how Jewish culture thrives in the absence of religious dogma. So I agree. Most of the Jews I meet are intelligent, thoughtful, kind, caring people compared to Christians, especially.
But Button Up said the guy reading isn't keeping up. So if you have a question, I'm going to jump to the end and go ahead and ask now.
Huh?
You got like 50 questions in between the answering one of your questions. So ask again, and I'm trying to hit up as many as we can. Hold on. when I said something about Buddhism, I was talking about Zen Buddhism.
I don't know a lot about Zen Buddhism, honestly, and so I don't try to educate it on. But in general, Buddhism gets a good rap in America because it's trendy, and people use it for meditation and the other things that go with it, and they don't see themselves as being terribly theistic. But that tends to ignore the problems with Buddhism that are the same as other religions have, and that is abuse in the temples, which happens. I interviewed on the old show in Milwaukee. We interviewed a gal who was a journalist in England who was trying to shed a light on abuse within Buddhism, and the point was that it happens in all religions. It's not just Catholicism, which gets the most vibe here. But all you have to do is look at Buddhists and Hindus across the years to see that the same kind of things happen, where the gurus and the teachers and the swamis and the leaders of the religion abuse their position, take advantage of people, a lot of times to create a sexual cult. Again, it's not. I think it's Tibetan Buddhism, but this cat Rinpoche is his name. Who went around starting these Buddhist centers, and it was exposed in the end as being a violent abuser of women and others. And a lot of these, the Beatles had that problem when they went to India, right? And John Lennon was so disillusioned, but in the end, by the I forget his name, by the guru that they visited, that he left religion altogether. And George Harrison always loved it. But the fact is that that guy was just in it to, he was just in it for the tail, my friends. So. Buddhism, I think people gloss over in America, really is what I'm getting at. They tend to shine on the good parts, and no one really looks deeply into the how young Buddhist monks, as early as the age of 2, are taken from their families and put into a Buddhist monastery. And for a poor family in Nepal, this is a blessing for them, for their kid to be picked and put into a monastery and educated. That's a way out of poverty for them, and most of these people are so happy that this has happened to their child that they will overlook any abuse that might happen to that kid who grows up in that monastery, and it's a huge problem. Hopefully we can get at that. I want to start more expose style reporting on the podcast about sexual abuse in different religions. The Amish community in America has come to light recently about how girls and women in the Amish community are subject to horrific abuse at the hands of their own family members. And all of this is down to the insular nature of religion. It's not just Catholics.
So Button Up has put a few comments out there. One was, Jews are taught to question everything. Christians are to question nothing. I'm not sure. I guess that was just a point they're making. See if I can find another question. There was one on. I'm not sure what this means. How did the mainstream Protestant disappear?
Well, the mainstream Protestants disappeared because the people who, like me, who came up in that tradition, have a much easier time letting go of the dogma, and the people that want to remain dogmatic simply migrated to churches that serve that need. So the people who used to be, going to small little town churches in New England ended up going to big churches where a lot of them get together, and the message again is watered down so that you don't have the differences between the sects of Protestantism like you did in the old days. And there was a reason someone was a Congregationalist, someone was a Baptist, someone was a Methodist. There are actual different philosophies and liturgies of worship in those different congregations. But for the megachurch that just preaches evangelical Christianity, there's not a whole lot of difference. They just teach you to believe and you will be saved. And that's comforting to the simpler mind. I don't know how else to put that. So it was much easier for those big churches to survive, and the little church that lost its young members to college and moving away to different parts of the country, they started dwindling to the point where they almost, crapped out completely. Now, the interesting thing here is that in a country where religion is in decline, and the numbers are are actually pretty stunning. You know, Christianity is dying in America. No matter what people try to tell you, it is dying. The evangelical preachers look out; they see empty pews, and sooner or later it will go away. The thing I found interesting, and thank you, Ginger. That's Ginger, the faithless healer we hear in the background from time to time, woofing. The thing we see is that the mainline Protestant sects are actually the only Christian sects in America that are on the uptick. And the reason I believe for that is because people who are disillusioned with the megachurch, people who are disillusioned with the evangelical message and the way that those people act and treat people, which is not the way that Jesus would have acted. Thank you. We don't need you right now. Thank you very much. Those people are going back to their old churches where there's a more liberal attitude, there's a more accepting attitude, there's less guilt, there's less emphasis on biblical literalism, which any thinking person knows is silliness. There's nothing about the Bible that anybody can call literal truth. Nothing. The people who wrote the Bible knew it was a metaphor. The people who wrote Genesis knew that what they were talking about was not history. It's a metaphor. God loved us, so he did this. And this is how he did this. It's not about anything else. It was about continuing the oral tradition of the way that the world began, which nobody really knows, but every religion, every native religion, every indigenous religion around the world has its own myth about how the world began.
All right, we're gonna just for time. We're gonna do two more. One is have you been on Atheist Experience?
I'm not. I've talked to Dillahunty. I've did a show with Dillahunty. He's a great mind, a fantastic thinker. I don't even pretend to be as smart as that guy is. I love the way his mind works. But no, I've not been on the Atheist Experience. I'd love to. Hopefully we get popular enough. He'll reach out again to me. You bald son of a bitch. Where are you, Matt?
I thought it would be a good time to talk about some of your other works within the atheist community.
Well, I don't know. What do you mean? Well, like I say, I've worked hard to be the guy who you can come to if you have a problem with religion. And some examples of this are the school district here, where it began in kindergarten, where my child came home from Thanksgiving having been taught the following as a Thanksgiving song. Thank you for the world so sweet. Thank you for the birds. Thank you for the food we eat. Thank you for the birds who sing. Thank you, God, for everything. And my kids had no God concept because I just wasn't going to talk to them about God. Let them learn on their own and then choose a religion when they got older. Here they go to the public school, and the kindergarten teacher is teaching them about God. I can never take that back. All right? And I want to tell you, if I was an atheist teacher and the Christian parents sent the Christian kids to kindergarten and they came home not believing in God, I'd be fired the next goddamn day. And that's an obvious fact. That wouldn't be tolerated for 1 minute. If I was a Muslim teacher and I converted somebody's kid to Islam because of something I said or a prayer that I taught, you'd be fired. There would be hell to pay for that in Christian America. So when I saw that this was going on, I said, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to help people break this cycle of societally accepted indoctrination, which happens sooner or later on the playground anyway, because all the other little kids are believers. And I remember what happened to me. Do you believe in God? Do you believe in God? It's something that comes up when you're 5, 6, 7, 8, and you talk about it, right? So when I saw that was going on in the school district, I decided to get involved, and that led me to 4 or 5 or 6 other huge violations, which culminated in when my kid was in 4th grade, his teacher, and this is like an advanced placement class. I got a smart kid who's in the advanced class. His teacher littered her classroom with biblical paraphernalia, Bible verses, advertisements for Christian concerts across town, all kinds of different, Christian paraphernalia here and there on the walls. It was undisguised and disgusting for a public school. We do not pay to have our kids indoctrinated into religion. That's what private schools are for. That's what Sunday school is for. So when I saw this, and I saw that some of the other kids in the class who identified as pagan were being called out for being pagan and not Christian, my son stood up and at one time and told the teacher, you shouldn't be talking to us about God. When I found out this was going on, I went and saw for myself what the classroom looked like, and I was shocked. I went to the principal. He refused to do anything. I gave them 6 months or so of talking, negotiating. This is why this is wrong, and if you don't take it down, you're going to be on the news and it's going to be ugly for the school. Well, exactly what I thought would happen happened. I called the Freedom from Religion Foundation in Madison. Anyone who has a problem with this can do that. It's ffrf.org. And if you send an email to intake@ffrf.org with your complaint, they will answer you. Anyway, I called them. They wrote a letter describing the unconstitutionality of what this teacher had convened on her classroom walls. I called the news. They came and did a news story. We were on the Milwaukee News. The story blew up all over the place. The school ended up being investigated. They had to hire their own lawyers. It was a huge mess that could have been avoided by simply complying with the regulations, really, the law that the public school cannot promote religion. And this is exactly what this teacher was doing. So that's one. We had a billboard go up several Christmases ago. That was an atheist billboard. It showed a little girl. She was making her Christmas list to Santa. And on her Christmas list it said, all I want for Christmas is to skip church. Because church is boring, all right? And that was the point, you know. And of course it made huge waves. But the fact is that there's an atheist community out here, and we do not deserve to be inundated with Christian propaganda in the public sector. Not at the public school, not in any government facility, or by any government officer. That is unconstitutional, against the law, and that's why we do what we do. There's been several other examples. We've put on shows, we've had conventions. I was involved in the Reason Rally in Washington, the last one, and we create community here. We do highway cleanups where we give back. We try to involve ourselves in charity events when we can. COVID has put the brakes on a lot of this, but the fact is that, again, atheists are the most hated minority in America, and we make up almost 30% of people now, and I'll qualify that by saying non-religious, not just people who actually identify as atheists is more like 5 or 6%. But the fact is that 25 to 30% of people in America are not religious and don't care. They don't care that that Christian nationalists want to infuse the country with their religion. It's just wrong. It doesn't need to go on, and we're getting steamrolled by a minority of religious thinkers in this country, much like a country like Pakistan, where a religious minority actually runs the government, making laws that the rest of us have to follow. So there's a million reasons that we do what we do. It's difficult for people. I don't have a problem coming out as an atheist because I'm not afraid of the backlash. I welcome it because it's needed. We are the last civil rights movement. And again, it's not to compare us to other civil rights movements. People will come back and say, well, atheism is a choice, which it's really not. I couldn't choose to go back to be a believer. But again, it's not to compare it to the suffering that other minorities have been through, but the fact is that we are the last one left. No one has ever even acknowledged the fact that there's an atheist community out here who are trying to get back to a country that was the first great secular nation on earth, a secular constitution, a secular government. Religion is your business, your right to practice it on your own terms, in your own house of worship, in your own home, in your own community. Not in my school, not in the government offices of any kind, period. So that's where we're at. We're going to continue this until people start paying attention and stop pandering to Christians. We all know that most politicians aren't terribly religious, but they are stuck talking religious glibbity-gloop because they know that they can't really get elected here without it, and it's bullshit. We need a presence. This is a secular country that has no secular voice. There's a fucking prayer breakfast that the government has. There's a Senate chaplain. A Senate chaplain that people will defend is not a violation of the separation clause. There's no way that we can continue to sanction that. This is not a Christian country. Christian nationalists will be the death of this country if they are allowed to survive. What went on with the douchebag who's out of office now is proof that religion can be used as a cudgel. He doesn't care about God, but he wound up the religious people across the country into a fervor by pretending that he was religious, he was Christian, and that the rest of us are out to get those Christians and and drive them out of existence. No. And I'll make that clear. Nobody here cares if you're a Christian. Nobody cares. We're not here to change people's minds who are already believers. We're here to support the people who are on the fence and support the people who have cognitive dissonance to the point where they can't live with themselves anymore, or are crippled at home because they can't go out on a date because they don't feel that they should be able to have sex because they're not married, because they were taught a certain thing and they can't get past it in their minds. Guilt and fear are what drive Christianity, instead of logic and reason and caring and empathy and sympathy and loving the least among us and loving the most downtrodden. Like, nobody does what Jesus would do. No Christian in America does what Jesus would. You don't even hear that anymore, right? You don't hear what would Jesus do from Christians, because none of them give a shit. They don't want to do what Jesus would do. They want to carry a gun in one hand and a Bible in the other and a Confederate flag in the other. And if you're not like they are, they don't want you here. That's not Christianity. No one wants to end religion. This is America. And again, I will die for your right to profess your faith. But you, the Christian, will not die for my right not to.
All right, this is out of left field. We're going to try to clear up these Q&A, and then one last question from the comments. What do you think of lucid dreaming?
We talk about that in the new podcast when it comes out. Take a look a little bit. Lucid dreaming probably had a lot to do, in my mind, with early religious writings. I mean, people didn't know what to make, of really vibrant dreams that appeared to be visions. People didn't know what to make of mentally handicapped people who raved and wandered about. People thought that those people were touched by God. They didn't really know how to deal with all of that. So I lost my train of thought. Where were you?
Lucid dreaming.
Oh yeah, lucid dreaming. So I think that like Revelation to me was probably a lucid dream, right? I mean, you read that thing and it's like, oh man, if you made a movie out of Revelation, it would be like a psychedelic trip. A message from God, or a guy who had a lucid dream and decided to write it down. I guess I think that's what lucid dreaming is, right?
Or it's lucid dreaming where you're dreaming, and then you can. I think that's what lucid dreaming is, but it still relates.
Okay, yeah. Again, I don't.
This was more of a statement, but we're gonna see if this. We're kind of figuring out how these work. So that I think I can click answered. How do I get it off the screen? No. Someone just wanted to say FFRF rocks.
They do. FFRF, I want to say that they do a fantastic job. The staff there is amazing. They are accommodating, they are kind, and they have a difficult job. A lot of their constituents are they need a lot of attention. They need a lot of support. They need a lot of hand-holding, and they get that from FFRF. And FFRF brings lawsuits against violations of the separation of church and state. And again, the staff there is remarkable. If anyone needs to reach out to them, they can reach out to us, or they can go straight to FFRF.